Mystical Munitions by K.D. Merchant. The joyous tinkling of the cat-shaped bell that hung above the door to the shop announced the entrance of a tall, willowy, dark-haired woman. She removed her sunglasses and glanced about the room. The crease between her eyebrows lessened as her urgency met a near-empty shop and an employee who waved in cheerful greeting. "What's troubling you today?" the short woman behind the counter asked, rolling up her red plaid sleeve as she placed crystals from a shipping box into a counter display case. The customer picked at the long lock of her black hair and twirled it around her spindly finger as she approached the counter. "Does Ramona work here?" the woman's voice asked in a lofty trill. The shorter woman took her hand out from inside the case and extended it across the counter, her warm, rosy pink palm meeting the ice-cold grasp of the customer's pale fingers. "I am she. Nice to meet you," Ramona said, rubbing her hands together to chase away the transfer of cold. She fiddled with her lip piercing as the customer plucked at the fine-patterned scarf around her neck and looked over her shoulder. "I came over from Silver Elm. There's been a little commotion in town." The stranger's hand found its way back to her scarf as she cleared her throat. Her voice wavered as she looked for the right words. "Bew said if you want to see results, see Ramona." "He's the police chief, right?" Ramona asked as her eyes narrowed as she tried to apply the right name to the face that popped into her memory. "He is. Bew said last time he encountered anything that pertained to the issue of this nature, you were the one to sort it out." The woman blinked her violet-blue orbs in a strange frog-like way as she tried to pry the story from her mouth. A quiet ticking filled the awkward silence from the porcelain owl clock that sat next to the old-fashioned cash register. "That particular order involved gnomes almost eating his gardener. He wouldn't have believed it if he hadn't captured it from his doorbell security camera." A Cheshire grin spread across Ramona's freckled cheeks, not quite meeting her eyes as she spoke. "This is Mystical Munitions." Her fingers wiggled eagerly as she gesticulated around the shop, filled to the brim with crystals, colorful candles, and enough herb mixes to drive the senses crazy. "Drop your worries a spell and tell me more about the bite you're trying to hide on your neck." She dipped out from behind the counter and locked the door while she switched the neon open sign to closed. "Why would gnomes eat the gardener?" The fright that filled the customer almost popped the grin right off Ramona's face. "You don't know much about the folk, do you, miss?" Ramona's green pupils flashed beneath her much too long feathery eyelash extensions as she tried to extract a name. "Lavinica Nachara." The woman flashed a fine, toothy grin and shook her head. "A lawyer doesn't have much need for crystals and fey." She tugged her white scarf off neatly, exposing two red pinprick welted marks on her long and delicate, almost blue neck. "Well, Lavinica, what type of symptoms have you been experiencing besides a loss of skin tone?" Ramona asked as she pulled a red velvet-lined walnut tray around the store and piled on little bits of product from here or there. "I don't know what you could mean." Lavinica batted her eyelashes like they could brush away the blatant lie. Ramona set the tray in front of her and looked Lavinica dead in the eye. "Oh, come now. Honesty will be your best policy here, my dear." Ramona tapped her on the nose with condescension as she spoke, then spun around to the back side of the desk and picked up another empty tray and disappeared behind a door. Lavinica didn't know where to begin. A spur-of-the-moment chance of romance had turned into a frightful night of becoming a snack and ended in the offer of immortality. She had assumed she had played into a night of delusion, but was shocked when all the warmth left her, like her lover in the night. She had become focused on a row of faux crows that felt as though they stared at her a little too hard as she tried to piece together the story she barely had come to terms with herself. Ramona's incessant smile startled Lavinica almost as much as the bang produced when the short woman set another tray before her with a loud thwack to gain her immediate attention. Lavinica took the hand that had shot to her mouth in shock and placed it on the odd gun before her. The barrel looked so different it almost looked wrong. Its black iron twisted in a hollow orb at the end that made her think of a fence ornament. Ramona patted the gun with a demented look of love. This, as you may have noticed, piece is not like a normal gun. I acquired it through a private dealer who fashioned it from the cage of a vampire grave. Ramona put a specialty box of bullets next to the strange weapon. Silver bullets filled not just with gunpowder, but a bit of the graveyard dirt from the vampire's grave were made specifically for this weapon. Lavinica let out a cackle. She laughed so hard, tears began to stream down her face. How could a modern woman such as herself believe in a thing as silly as vampires? Smoothing out her black peplum dress, she almost turned to leave, but then noticed the lack of reflection in the mirror sitting on top of the counter. A dress floated before her. The absence of herself drove a nail of panic into her still heart, and the laughter dried up. There it is, Ramona patted her cold hand. Let it sink in, but don't let it take too long. You can become human again if you use a wooden stake through the heart of the thing that did this to you. Or you can use this gun, which is great because it gives you distance from your target. You just have to do it before you feed. That morbid thought had not crossed Lavinica's mind. The need to take in blood, the thought of needing to harm another human for her own existence was so revolting her stomach contents threatened to revive her last meal. Is there something that could help me find the man that did this? He ran off before I could piece together what happened, Lavinica asked, while hefting the weapon off the countertop and watching it float in the mirror. You should have an innate sense that lets you find the one who changed you. That's at least what I have read in books. Ramona shrugged and picked a piece of lint off her shirt. And judging by your lack of gnome knowledge, I would suggest you trust me and take this gun home with you. What's this piece run? Lavinica asked, opening up her purse and taking out her credit card with a nervous flick of her wrist. Money isn't quite what I had in mind. Ramona's voice darkened, and Lavinica could have sworn something seemed off about the shop owner's shadow. It flickered, as though backlit by a candle, but she couldn't see a lit candle in the shop. What do you need for me to take this off your hands? Lavinica asked. The lump in her throat seemed to challenge her courage. A favor, not now, but later, Ramona stated with elegant nonchalance. How big a favor? Lavinica questioned, feeling like a fly wriggling in a spider's web. It won't be small. The pleasure that rolled off Ramona's tongue as she sang the word small felt like a dagger to Lavinica's gut. What if I just chose immortality? Lavinica felt so desperate she needed to bring the idea out in the open. I'm sure Bia would take issue with that once his people started showing up dead or mutilated, Ramona said as she placed the contract before the slender woman. You could always take your chances with a wooden stake. She mimed striking an invisible foe with the pen she was about to place in Lavinica's hand. One bullet should end him, Lavinica specified, really feeling the weight of the weapon. She had never shot a gun before. As long as your aim is good, one should do. Luckily, there's a whole box of bullets in case you miss. Ramona laughed. Lavinica opened up the chamber and pressed one of the frigid metal capsules into place and cocked the firearm. What if I just took the gun? She held the loaded weapon at the merchant. The smile on Ramona's face became even more dangerous. Her eyes widened and glowed a soft gold while her shadow climbed up the wall, and Lavinica felt an invisible tendril run from the floor, up and around her body, ending by her cheek. You seem smart enough not to try that, and just accept the deal for what it is. Ramona's voice sounded as if it whispered in her ear, even though her grimace never faltered. The taller woman closed her eyes, internally prayed to a deity she didn't believe in, and concentrated hard on the features of the man she had thought so charming before realizing her mistake. She could indeed feel where he was, and if she acted fast, she could get to him before the end of day. A new drive settled into the base of Lavinica's stomach, and she set the gun down carefully and jotted her signature across the contract. Good girl. Ramona cheered and snapped her fingers. The document disappeared. I will be cheering you on from over here. She bagged up the gun and goodies and tied a red ribbon around the handles of the paper bag that held the promise of death. Good luck, my friend. Thank you, Livinica said, not really feeling like she had been helped. She picked up the heavy tote and crossed back to the door, carefully putting her sunglasses on to protect her very delicate eyes from the weak autumn sunshine. Ramona unlocked the door and bowed Lavinica out, the tinkling of the bell celebrating the absence of people in the space. She turned the open sign back on as she watched the peplum dress fade into the busy of the day. She's going to need it. Ramona's shadow squawked jovially as it giggled into her own ear. Oh, hush you, she whispered to herself, truly wishing the best for the woman. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. If you like what I wrote, please feel free to like or subscribe. If you want to check out more, the best thing you can do is follow me at KD Merchant on Tumblr. Thank you so much. Bye.